Okay, we are live once again from the gym. I am already on the elliptical machine, going for a little bit now. So I will try to do a vlog from the elliptical machine. So today what's on my mind is people have been asking about applying for tenure-track faculty positions. So this is when you finish your PhD and or you might be doing a postdoctoral fellowship, or occasionally you may be in industry. It may be an R&D type of research position for a while, and you want to make a transition to a tenure-track assistant professor position. People have been asking me about this, usually the start of fall, because that's when people start thinking about maybe applying for these positions, because they usually occur on a seasonal cycle. So it depends on field, but for a lot of fields, the job ads go out officially in the beginning of fall semester or quarter, and the application process kind of goes throughout the year. So unlike many industry jobs, which can happen very fast, if you apply for a job or get a referral, you may be able to get an interview within a week or two, and then go on site and do negotiations and everything, and things might happen within maybe 1 month, maybe 2 months. But for the kind of tenure track process, it will take basically the entire academic year from planning to doing it. So, you know, it is going to be like a 6 to 8 month period. So I have a lot of notes on my website. If you go to pgbovine.net and you look up faculty job applications, there's a section on the side of my site. You can see a sidebar on the side. I think faculty job applications is a whole section. So I've written a lot about this, about tips for applying. I put my own job application materials up. I've just written a ton of notes on this. But so this video, I want to kind of go over my first impressions if people ask me this question. So if you were to ask me this question right now, point blank, assuming I knew you, I think, you know, the first thing I would say is, do you believe you are a strong contender for the kinds of positions that you want to apply for? So many people want to become tenure-track faculty at what is known in the United States as R1 university. So that's, I think it's like 100 and something, about 100 schools, let's say, that have PhD programs, and that essentially where you are doing what your advisor is doing, right? Because by definition, if you're a PhD student or a postdoc, you are working for an advisor who is at a R1 university, most likely, because they have PhD students and postdocs. So if you want the same kind of job your advisor has, you're probably aiming for one of these R1 jobs. Other people want a tenure-track job at a more teaching-oriented university or college, such as a liberal arts college, or many public universities have, say, no PhD program, and most of your job responsibilities are related to teaching. So those are different kinds of positions as well. I think the first thing that I would really ask you is to do your homework on people in your field, in your sub-area, who have gotten the kinds of faculty jobs that you hope to get, and really honestly assess your own current qualifications, most importantly in terms of your publications on your resume, and compare that to people who have gotten those kinds of jobs in the past, let's say 3 years. Because standards change so much over time, I would not try to compare yourself to people who've gotten these jobs, say 10 years ago or 20 years ago. I would compare yourself to peers who are a few years above you, 3 years, 5 years at most above you, and really try to look at their resume when they applied. And you can easily work backwards because people's resumes are cumulative, right? Their CVs are cumulative, so you can just go back to the year when they were applying and look at how many papers and what kind of papers they had, what kind of awards they had when they were applying. And it's, it's often hard to assess oneself candidly, but I would really encourage people who ask me about this to go through this exercise, because I don't want to make a judgment for you, because human judgments are often fallible, they're often biased, they're often filled with all sorts of subjectivity. I would try to get that assessment from your advisor, from trusted peers or colleagues and such. One thing I'll note is that in general, my experience has been people have always wanted to err on the side of being kind of too nice, in the sense of, I think it will be very hard pressed for you to find someone who is going to give you very critical comments for several reasons. One, because people don't like saying, in general, right? People don't like being the bad person and saying negative things. And two, they don't want to, they want to be careful about what they say, and they don't want to misspeak or anything. So I just find that it's very hard to get an honest appraisal of your chances. But I think it's important for you to do so, and I'll tell you why in a second. Because in the end, when it comes down to it, this is a very long process. And going through this process is going to take a lot of your time and energy, and it's going to be an opportunity cost when you could have been focusing on applying to really good industry jobs, of which there are many more of than tenure-track faculty jobs. And I think that it's important for you to prioritize your time where you think is going to be great. And I don't think a good way to prioritize time is to say, okay, I think I'm going to try this tenure-track faculty job thing. I'm going to just half-ass my application process. And then I'll also try to apply for some industry jobs here and there, whatever comes up. Because then what happens is that you're not trying as hard on the academia side as the people who try really hard, and you're not trying as hard on the industry side for the people who try really hard, so you're not going to get good results. I would really just focus on one or the other, depending on what is best for you. And the truth of the matter is that the tenure-track side is a far longer process. It's a 6 to 8 to 9 month process. It has a much lower chances of success just due to the scarcity of these positions and the number of places with openings. And there's just an opportunity cost, because you can apply to a lot more industry jobs and really focus on that if that's the thing that you'd really want to do. So going back to the point of, if you ask people for their appraisal or assessment, I think that people will tend to err on the side of being too nice and not give you as much critical feedback. But the thing is, when faculty are reviewing applications, we can be extremely critical, because it all happens behind closed doors, and we only invite the top few people out to interview who we want to. So as an approximate figure, a reasonable approximation is that, let's say, 150 people apply for each spot. So with 150 people applying, the short list, the first pass gets down to maybe 30 people who are fairly serious contenders. And then that 30 gets whittled down to maybe 4 that get interviewed. And out of 4 interviews, we can make 1 offer, and maybe we can make a second offer if the first person doesn't take the offer, or there's another condition. But that is the kind of funnel you're talking about. And of course, some industry positions are really competitive as well. But the thing with industry positions is that there's a lot more of them. And there's also a lot more of them in the location that you may want. So, it's just a numbers game that it's just going to be a lot harder to get the academic tenure-track position that you want. So I think my main note in this video is to really think about what are your honest chances of being a strong contender. I think I think that the most objective, quote unquote, way to look at that is to look at the resumes of people who have succeeded into getting the position that you want to get in the past few years. And of course, there's still a ton of subjectivity. You can't just compare number of papers or number of awards or whatever. There's still a lot of fuzziness and subjectivity going on, but at least it'll give you some ballpark, right? It gives you some starting point to start thinking from that. And my final note I want to end this video on is it's kind of a way to put it bluntly, but I think that if you're having these sorts of doubts, quote unquote, or asking me or others about this, then perhaps you may not be as competitive on the market as would be ideal, because every year in every field, there's a small set of people who are highly competitive at the top of the job market for these faculty tenure track positions in a particular field. And it's like they kind of know who they are, and other people kind of know who they are as well. So it's one of those things where it's like you know when you see it. And I hate saying that because that implies all sorts of subjectivity and fuzziness and perhaps bias. But I guess what I'm saying is that if you have to really ask about it and have those doubts in your head, then perhaps you may not be that ready at this time. And I guess my final, more optimistic note to end on is that there are ways to improve your chances in the future. So doing a postdoctoral fellowship for a few years where you're focused on publishing and establishing a direction will help. If you can get into industry in a position where you can actually publish papers, that could also keep you fresh in the game and help when perhaps the market is better in a future year, or perhaps what you're doing, it becomes a hot area and such. So those are kind of my notes on this topic. And this is just kind of a response to people frequently asking me about, should I apply for tenure-track faculty positions? How should I do it? And my website says a lot about how you could do it, a lot of kind of concrete tips, my application materials and everything, but this kind of video I'm making is kind of the first gut impression that I have is how I would respond to someone asking me that for the first time. So I hope you found that helpful. Until next time.